Hey there and welcome back to Rimworld. My name is Pete and today we complete another episode of Rimworld Odyssey with the spacefaring Stars of Som. Last time we left off, after fully exploring an ancient complex hidden beneath frozen ice, then we traveled towards sunnier pastures as unexpectedly our teenage gravship pilot River decides to leave the colony, but we had no choice but to keep the adventure going and now find ourselves at an abandoned chem fuel stockpile. The chem fuel has already been secured, now we're in the process of stripping the place clean, and we should get to it as there is trouble brewing in the form of mechanoids. A psychic ship is already emitting a low-intensity drone disturbing all males in the colony, and as our Itakin Reno tries his luck taming one of the thrumbos that wandered in last episode, we have another mech cluster arrive. Thankfully though, this one starts out dormant too, and the main threat here is only a weather controller. With only a 2% success chance, Reno then of course also fails the taming attempt, but we're not giving up quite so easily, more on that later. For now, we can watch as Alex deconstructs all of the biofuel refineries that we found inside the chem fuel stockpile. This yields a decent chunk of resources, just like the steel shelves over here. However, our resource gathering efforts are soon disturbed by the psychic ship. A psychic pulse drives two nearby animals manhunter. Luckily, it's just a lone mink and a turkey, so nothing that poses a serious threat to our crew. In the middle of the night then, the psychic drone intensifies, and with that, the mood penalties for our male colonists further increase, so we should probably work on getting out of here as soon as possible. However, we still have a thrumbo to tame, and here's how we're hopefully going to achieve it. Inside of our cargo bay, we still have two sentience catalysts, and interestingly enough, these can be installed even on wild animals that have not yet been tamed. So, as we get a visitor here, Reno successfully plugs the device into the thrumbo's brain. This significantly lowers its wildness rating and allows our Itakin to successfully tame it, and with that we now have a male companion for Alpha Thrumbo Terror Kittens. We'll name him Felix, after Patreon supporter Felix Hawkins. It was also around this time that I realized that we have a few animals in our colony that can actually haul stuff. Terror Kittens is one of them, Felix will hopefully be soon, and so is our panther Kevin. At this point then, we chop some wood near the gravship just to turn it into chem fuel later. For the moment, our two tanks are filled to capacity, but that will of course change as soon as we lift off, and my plan for today's episode is to hopefully also build a shuttle, and those of course also need chem fuel to move around. Eventually then, as an evening fog sets in, we prepare for liftoff. The He's are now piloted by Brent and Fabian, and for our next destination we're looking for one that is rich in plasteel. Searching for it on the map reveals 3 locations nearby, and we're actually going with the one that is furthest away, as this place also houses a secret drug stockpile. In addition, it is close to another plasteel quarry, so should we get that shuttle up and running, we can strike both locations simultaneously. So here we are then, inside of a small open area surrounded by caves. The entrance to the drug stockpile is nearby, and so are plenty of insects. Thankfully, the plasteel vein to the north of our landing site seems largely unguarded. It is also quite a bit smaller than I had anticipated. Nonetheless, we sent our dirt mole Saber Swordsong out to start mining immediately. For a change, we are then also once again constructing some wind turbines near the gravship. It is nighttime and our batteries are running dangerously low. Saber then stops her mining to go on a food binge. She is still suffering from psychite withdrawal, perhaps a condition we can soon cure, depending on what we find inside the underground stockpile. Nelgraf is already employing his hacking skills to get us inside, and just as Brian and Alex are starting a quick sleeping quarters overhaul, the skies suddenly darken. Looks like the ancient smoke vents on this map are wasting no time. Good thing we built those wind turbines. A few hours later then, a bulk goods trade ship passes by in orbit. Finally a chance to clear out some unwanted cargo. We're purchasing some psychite tea here for Nelgraf, and in exchange we hand over about 1,000 units of leathers and furs. The psychite tea is then of course immediately consumed, preventing Nelgraf from falling into a coma, and it also raises his mood and a few other bodily functions. Now, unfortunately, Nelgraf is not the only one interested in drinking it. As you can see here, Saber is quick on the scene as well, and I'm not quite sure how I should feel about this. On one hand, Psychite tea is really not that dangerous, so we might as well let our pawns have some. On the other hand, though, we were really close to beating Saber's addiction, and we sacrificed a lot of mental breaks to get to this point. In hindsight, those weren't really needed now, were they? And maybe the same even goes for River leaving us last episode. That decision too was triggered by her withdrawal symptoms. Now, with a few more leathers hauled into the range of our orbital trade beacon, we can now sell those off as well, so we've got a bit more silver coming in just before the trade ship then leaves. We're also using the cover of darkness to hunt mega sloths. There's actually 2 of them sleeping near our landing site, and the meat inside of our freezer is slowly but steadily running out, not to mention that we've just made room for plenty more heavy fur inside of our cargo bay. The ancient smoke vents thankfully also shut down in the early morning hours. Nelgraf seems particularly happy about this and receives a taming inspiration. And what's even better, with all of the plasteel we've gathered, we have finally been able to build a shuttle. Now, by popular demand, the name for this shuttle was actually decided a long time ago. To honor a duck that died way too early, we'll name the shuttle Black Shadow, so that channel member Black Shadow 2348 can participate in this series for a little while longer. The materials needed for the shuttle have unfortunately exhausted the plasteel vein though, so Brent and Saber, who has just reached level 20 in the mining skill, have moved on to steel. The amount we have stored back on board of the ship is running a bit low. Around midnight then, Deborah takes over, hacking the ancient stockpile entrance. She has actually turned all of our jade into small statues, and every room on board of the Heezer is now adequately decorated. And with that, I think it's time for a little nighttime adventure. Let's have our 2 miners, Saber and Brent, enter the shuttle. We'll give them a few packaged survival meals, but they won't be away long. They will only take the shuttle to that nearby plasteel vein. The shuttle's liftoff is then much less cinematic than the gravship's launch. As the 2 of them arrive at their destination, we also need to tell them to set up camp, and just like that we have arrived, and Saber and Brent are now free to explore. By the way, compared to the gravship's cost of 10 chem fuel per tile, the shuttle only consumes 3, however we get no control over where the shuttle actually lands. Now, at this point then, the ancient stockpile entrance has been opened, and as usual, our brave adventurer Alex is first to head inside. However, it seems like we need some more hacking efforts in order to proceed here. Now, the first room we come across is clear, the next one then could already be the mother lode. As you can see, it is full of drugs. And not just the harmless stuff, we've got everything from smoke leaf joints to luciferium in here, and it seems to me like even more treasure can be found. In the next room then, another survival meal pallet is waiting to be looted. In the one beyond that, we discover our first turret. Alex's shield belt prevents her from getting harmed though, as she picks up some components from a small box. Nelgraf then unlocks another door, but trouble awaits behind it in the form of bugs. Perhaps it's best we just leave them be for now and secure the drugs instead. You never know what else we might find. Eventually then, we open up another chamber. This one has an ancient security terminal in it. Nelgraf can hack it to disable the turret in the room adjacent. We have cleared that one out already though, so no need to go back there. Our plasteel mining operation has also already concluded. The vein was once again rather small, and while Saber now loads up the shuttle, Brent can hack the ancient satellite uplink. Inside the drug stockpile, meanwhile, a small fight has broken out. The insects have noticed us. However, the mega spider here seems a bit more interested in the turret than in us. Up on the surface, we then unlock the uranium slug turret, and up next I think we'll go with pulse-charged munitions, so that we can make our own charge rifles and also unlock the new beam weapons. Already damaged from the turret, the mega spider is then swiftly shot down. We open the door into the next area, but find nothing of value, and just in that moment Brent finishes hacking the ancient uplink and discovers the location of an orbital satellite. Now, I'll be totally honest, these do not really intrigue me all that much. In my opinion, they currently suffer from the same issue that ancient complexes also have. Most of the time, the loot inside of them is just too sparse and underwhelming. As a result, moving the entire gravship only to find perhaps just a few advanced components, oftentimes that just doesn't really feel worth it. Now, our shuttle meanwhile is ready to go, and we're not flying straight back home just yet. There is another ancient uplink in the Glowforest nearby. I'm interested to see if that one spits out anything different, so let's send the Black Shadow on its way. Inside of the ancient drug stockpile then our adventurers meet some more danger. The next room here hides a wasp trap and a hunter drone in the corner too. I don't think we'll have any major problems dealing with those though, so instead let's jump over to Brent and Saber, who have landed near the uplink in the Glowforest. Brent can immediately get to hacking. Alex's shield belt then tanks the hunter drone as usual. From a nearby supply crate we can also gather some more graphite panels, while the next room awaits us with a pallet of survival meals. Eventually then we find what looks to be the last room of this underground complex. As we enter, one final hunter drone launches an attack, but Alex's shield belt has already fully recharged, so she takes no further damage and can now open the last crate. 6 advanced components then make for a lovely price in my opinion, and once everything has been collected, our 3 adventurers can finally return to the surface. While they now unload their inventories, the rest of our crew is once again busy chopping wood for chem fuel, and Brent hacks his second satellite uplink in just a few hours. The results of this one though very similar to the first one, another orbital satellite that we could travel to scavenge whatever is on it. Good to know, but at this point I think it's time to return home for Brent and Saber. Once again, in terms of chem fuel consumption, the shuttle is definitely much more efficient than the gravship, and I think for all of those stops where we don't need the entire crew on location, we're going to use it quite frequently. As you can see, Saber also immediately goes back to work mining more components. Randy then sends us a minor challenge at night as a local porcupine goes mad. In an attempt to shoot it down, a stray bullet from Brent then unfortunately hits our guinea pig, Lyoko, and even though the man-hunting porcupine falls dead just a few seconds later, Lyoko unfortunately loses his jaw and has a bleeding head wound. Now, 11-year-old Furion quickly patches up the wound, but still, the poor guinea pig will have some trouble eating in the future. Speaking of eating, we quickly also relocate our animals to greener pastures here, and this time we also build a fence to keep them inside. That way they can interact a bit more freely, and we should have some more offspring soon. We are at this point also using up our last grav core to build a second power cell. If we actually end up going into orbit soon, then we will definitely need these. Those satellites we just learned about tend to be heavily guarded, so we're going to need our turrets, and with 2 more autocannons now coming up, we also need a means to power them. A little bit of hunting in the evening then, as a group of alpaca roams past, and an animal reward from Randy as we track down the last one here. Looks like a pair of dromedaries has joined us. 1 male, 1 female, we'll name them Havo and Bipple. Both names are of course, as always, picked from the list of channel members and patron supporters in the naming rights tier and above. Having just spent 700 steel on 2 autocannon turrets, Saber works on acquiring more in the evening. The investment is well worth it though. Our defenses are starting to come along, I think. At this point, the next step should certainly be to once more increase the size of our gravship. There are a few more facilities that we should still build on board of the Heezer. One of them is some sort of chamber for our ideology. Our colony wealth has already reached the point where our pawns demand such a thing. Currently, all of them are missing the astral altar, and at least Reno is not taking it lightly and now goes on an insulting spree. A little power switch rearrangement then improves the design of our defenses, ensuring that we no longer need to step outside to power our turrets on and off, a handy advantage should we ever find ourselves in the vacuum of space, for example. Just a few seconds later then, Reno's insulting spree is promptly met with violence. Seems like Alex is not the one who'll just let his words slide, and being incapable of violence, Reno will now just have to take the beating. Once more, this allows young Furion to improve his medical skill, at this point already at a respectable level 10. Now, at this point, we're actually also coming up onto the end of today's episode, and that is for one simple reason. I am not entirely sure yet how our small gravship crew should proceed from here. Sure, we will of course keep hunting down those grav cores for the aforementioned reasons. We also have not yet visited the lava fields biome, so that would be worth a stop too. But apart from that, overall I feel like we're currently lacking direction on a grander scale. In previous playthroughs, there were always one or two big goals to work towards. In this one, it feels more like we're just floating around. We are, of course, steadily making improvements, but I find that we're missing that bigger purpose. So I would be very interested to hear from you what you think that bigger purpose for this series should be. I still very much like the idea of collecting one pair of each animal. However, in order to be able to do so, we would probably need some sort of permanent residence, a place where all of those animals could actually find enough food. And having that place up in orbit on a derelict space station or an asteroid is of course also possible. It would require a tremendous effort though, especially when it comes to defenses, and this perhaps brings with it another small challenge. Despite our technological advances and ever-increasing colony wealth, we actually don't have that capable of a crew on our hands. 2 of our 11 pawns are children, another 2 are incapable of violence. In combination with the whole gravship theme, this playthrough would actually be perfectly suited for 1 or 2 powerful mechanitors. Sadly though, so far we haven't had the chance to make any. That being said, I would still very much appreciate your ideas for spicing things up a bit. Please feel free to leave all of your suggestions, no matter how outlandish they may be, in the comments down below, so that the Stars of Som may find their grand purpose in this galaxy. For today though, let's make the cut at this point. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, then I would be very happy if you could leave a thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing and want to support me and my channel further, then you can go ahead and subscribe to stay up to date, grab some merch over on shop.petecomplete.com, or become a channel member or Patreon supporter. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.